Why are defined benefit pension transfers so bloody expensive? Okay, in today's video, I'm going to be breaking the topic down for you, letting you know how you can try to minimize your costs, but also maximize the value you are receiving in return for the advice fees that you're paying. You're going to be paying thousands of pounds, possibly tens of thousands of pounds, depending upon the size of your CETV, cash equivalent transfer values. So you really want to maximize this when you're going to be spending money. The very best thing you can do to help us here at Cameron James is to hit the subscribe button below. This lets YouTube know that we're not a terrible bunch. It improves our SEO and allows us to invest more time and energy into the channel to produce free educational content for clients, non-clients, anybody who finds the content useful and interesting for their financial planning. Okay, so diving straight into the topic. Financial planning and defined benefit pension transfers is probably one of the most complex and the most expensive areas of financial planning. The reason it has become so expensive is because of the amount of pension transfer specialists that are dropping out of the market. Now, we get clients say all the time, oh, the FCA is in cahoots of everyone. Everyone's just trying to make money. It's a racket. Not true. If it was a racket, you'd have more and more financial advisors trying to provide DB advice. To get DB advice permissions from the FCA in the UK, Jesus Christ. If you're applying for new permissions with the FCA, good luck. It's mainly firms that already have the existing permissions from many years ago that are still obviously able to write DB pension transfer advice. However, the majority of those are trying to give up their DB permissions because it's such an area which is very, very hot and looked at very, very closely by the FCA. Some advisory firms don't do that many DB advice as well, so holding on to the permissions and the extra cost of PI insurance simply isn't worth it. So, in simple terms, the number of PTSs that are offering DB advice is going like this, and it's been doing so for some number of years. The reason it's so expensive for PTSs to provide advice is one, PI insurance. We live in a world which has become litigious. So if you go back 5-10 years ago, a lot of people were transferring DB schemes when maybe it wasn't a very good idea for them to do so, and actually they were given a positive transfer outcome by the PTS at the time. Now, you then get unscrupulous lawyers and whatever firms. Some of these clients have even gone and made large amounts of money in their SIT or whatever they transferred to. Some of them have even outperformed their DB, but you get the ambulance chasing lawyers that then go after the PTS and say, oh, the advice should have been a negative report rather than a positive report, even though the client has had a fantastic retirement and had loads of growth if they've been well invested in the equity market. So the costs are massively increasing for pension transfer specialists to stay in the industry, and it's a very, very hot and contentious area. Now, for those of you who like to make the very most of your money, what I would say to you is you're going to have to accept it. If you want to transfer your defined benefit pension or defined benefit pensions, you are going to need to pay advice fees. It's going to cost you thousands of pounds, whichever way you look at it. So my advice would always be accept. It's a professional service. It's FCA regulated financial advisors, administration support. It has to be paid for. People on PAYE salaries, as you'll know from your own PAYE slips, national insurance contributions, tax. There's a huge amount of cost that goes into employing staff. So you've got to pay the fees. So what you need to do is be smart about it. Work out, okay, which financial advisory firm do I actually think has my interests at heart, and which are just trying to fleece me in order to make some fees from the advice. So I would say go out and do your research. Here at Cameron James, we're extremely well known for defined benefit pension transfer advice as part of a two-advisor model here at Cameron James. Reach out to us, get in touch, understand what your costs are, then you can go away and compare the market. Now, in terms of DB pension transfer advice, it is so annoying and so complicated. Personally, I actually love it here at Cameron James because it's so complicated and it's so difficult. It creates a niche market. And if you can position yourself well in that niche, a lot of clients are going to want to work with you like we have here at Cameron James. However, I could go on my WhatsApp now and I could have 10 or 15 clients. I could call them right now on my WhatsApp and say, hi, Jonathan, do you remember doing your DB pension transfer with us at Cameron James as part of a two-advisor model? Do you remember how difficult and stressful it was? They will probably talk for 2 or 3 minutes. And they go, oh my God, Dominic, it was horrible. I'm so glad to have got through it. If it hadn't been for you guys at Cameron James and your due diligence team, your transfer team, following up and chasing the scheme every 5 or 10 working days, I think I would have given up. We even have clients at the end of a DB advice process as part of the two-advisor model saying, Dominic, I literally would have stopped the process if it wasn't for you. The seeding scheme in the UK was ridiculous in terms of the questions they were asking. They just had a client yesterday on the phone, Joe, I'll send him this link. He was like, Dominic, why does the scheme keep coming back with new and new forms every time, despite your compliance department at Cameron James clearly asking them to provide all required forms at the same time? It's basically a massive game of cat and mouse. You get the pension transfer advice and the pension transfer specialist. That's just the beginning. And even to have got to that stage, Jesus Christ, you need to get your cash equivalent transfer value. Now, if you write off to your seeding scheme and say, hi, can I have my cash equivalent transfer value? You will not be able to obtain advice with that CETV. It's a physical impossibility. Now, I have never come across one DB scheme in the UK that by default includes all the information we need. Immediate retirement quote, all the factors of the scheme. So here at Cameron James, we ask for the CETV plus about 30 other pieces of information. Otherwise, they send the CETV, then you have to request the information. It takes months and months and months. Anyway, this client was saying to me, it's ridiculous, Dominic. Why do they keep requesting more and more information? And it just drags on and on and on and on. Anybody who tells you they can get a DB pension transfer done for you in a matter of weeks or even a month is talking absolute jackanori and has clearly never been in the industry for very long or never done a DB pension transfer. It takes time. And here at Cameron James, we have a transfer department now. I believe it's 10 members of staff now, full-time, 9 to 5 every day, calling these seeding schemes in the UK, pushing them for information, pushing them for, we've submitted the advice report for the client. Can we now push ahead with the transfer? So if you're looking to get good value, reach out to reputable financial planning firms that can either provide DB advice directly or provide advice as part of a 2-advisor model and do your comparison between them. But unfortunately, you are just going to have to accept that it is expensive and you've got to crack on with it. Now, on the other side of the equation, when you look at the cost of transferring a DB scheme, the biggest disadvantage of moving away from a defined benefit scheme is that you are losing your guaranteed income for the rest of your life. At your normal retirement age or normal retirement date, whatever your scheme calls it, you are guaranteed an income from your DB scheme which will be indexed to grow at a certain rate. Now, for some deferred members, that indexation might not be very good. It might actually be below the inflation currently of the UK, but for any active members, the inflation linking is normally very, very strong. However, that doesn't mean to say that somebody inside an SIPP cannot outperform their DB. The performance inside an SIPP, or a SIP I should say, is obviously not guaranteed. Yes, the S&P 500 has done fantastically well over the past 50 years, and if you look at the average rate of returns towards 10%, but there's no guarantee of that. But what I can say, we're all certainly here at Cameron James, particularly for some of the deferred members who got advice through Cameron James, the performance in their SIP has actually outperformed their DB, despite the fact that the DB was providing guaranteed income, which is extremely safe and secure, whilst the SIP was providing unguaranteed income, but obviously the level of growth in the equity markets has been really good. So when you're looking at the initial cost, and I'll give you an example here, the team can put our cost up on the page. For us, a £500,000 pension transfer, 1 CETV, let's keep it simple. Our initial advice fee here at Cameron James would be 2% for the implementation and for the transfer. For the physical DB advice report, the minimum advice report now is £3,750. So you're looking at that 2% is £10,000 plus £3,750 at a minimum, depending upon what the scheme is. So that's £13,750 as an initial fee, which is a large chunk of cash. Now, I would not want to be spending that amount of money if I did not know that my money was going to be well looked after in terms of the investments afterwards. So it's really important. Do not go with the cheapest DB advice. You might have someone who can offer it to you for £5,000 or £7,000, £10,000, I don't know. But then underneath that, the portfolio they're using might be rubbish, or it might be a portfolio that pays them a trail, particularly in the non-UK resident market. Be really, really careful. The advisor you're working with, you pay an initial fee, but what is likely to be your ongoing returns over the course of time? Because if you invest your portfolio well, over the course of 5 or 10 years in a globally diversified portfolio, say a balanced investor, circa 65% equity weighting, you should have very good performance inside your SIP as long as you do not mess up the portfolio, or as long as your financial advisor does not mess up the portfolio. And obviously past performance, no guarantee to future performance, but it's all we have when we look at the returns of the markets. I hope this has been a useful video for today. If you have any questions at all, if you want to get in touch, just start a conversation. Don't feel like, oh, you have to wait until you've decided who you're going to work with. I always find this peculiar from clients say, oh, I haven't decided who I'm going to work with yet. I'm like, of course you bloody haven't. You haven't even had a client profile with us. You don't even understand what we do here at Cameron James. You haven't spoken to anyone. Begin a conversation with us or any good financial advisory firm you think you can work with to understand what you are going to get in return for your fees and charges, things like cash flow planning. We use Voyant here at Cameron James. It's very uncommon in the UK. Even though the FCA keeps saying cash flow planning is so important, the large majority of financial advisors in the UK do not do cash flow planning, which you have to ask yourself, what are you really paying your fees for in return? Anyway, I will let you all get back to your days, but if you have any questions at all, let me know in the comment section below and look forward to speaking with you very soon.